Last Sunday, I learned what it feels like to be edited out of your own family while sitting at their table. The steak hissed, the lasagna dried at the edges, and my mother smiled without warmth as she cut me off. Don't ask him about work, she told my sister's fiancé. Savannah laughed. If you're embarrassed, just lie and say you're in design. The room chuckled. I didn't. I swallowed the heat, placed my napkin down, and memorized every face. Families think revenge is loud. It isn't. It's quiet, patient, and already in motion. They just couldn't see it yet. I didn't start out angry. I started out invisible. Growing up in the Cole house felt like being the background music at someone else's movie, always playing, never noticed. Mom loved routines. Steak night Thursdays, matching sweaters at Christmas, polite smiles for the neighbors. She also loved Savannah. You could see it in the way her voice softened when she said her name, the way she bragged about her grades like they were family trophies. When I was 9, I built a birdhouse for my science fair. I still remember the smell of pine sap on my fingers, the nails bent at awkward angles. I won third place, nothing huge, but mine was the only project done without help. I ran home holding that little ribbon like a miracle. Mom didn't look up from icing a cake for Savannah's ballet recital. That's nice, honey, she said. Now go wash up your sister's big night. I didn't know it then, but that moment built the first layer of silence in me. By 12, I'd learned that praise was a currency, and I was broke. Savannah could paint a stick figure and Mom would call it art. Dad, when he was home, clapped her on the back and told me to be more focused. Focused meant corporate, not creative. He wore success like a cologne, expensive, choking, and everywhere. At 17, I spent an entire summer building a cabinet in the garage. Old oak, dovetail joints, hand-sanded for weeks. I left it in the living room, proud. 2 years later, I came home from college orientation, and it was gone. We sold it, Mom said, pouring coffee like it was nothing. It didn't fit the new decor. I didn't say a word, but something inside me splintered like dry wood under too much weight. I kept working with my hands because they were the only part of me that ever felt steady. After high school, when everyone else chased degrees, I stayed. Started fixing up antique pieces for neighbors, selling small restorations online. Dad called it playing carpenter. Brandon joked that I'd end up on one of those before and after shows before being broke, after still broke. Savannah laughed. At least you have a hobby, right? There were small mercies, though. My mentor, Walter Ames, found me through a local client when I was 21. He was this wiry man with hands like tree roots, scars from 40 years of restoring old wood. The first thing he told me was, craftsmanship isn't about money. It's about care. And that's rarer than gold these days. He'd call sometimes, talk about history, finishes, tools I couldn't afford. I listened like gospel. One winter, he let me visit his shop upstate, dust in the sunlight, radio humming, Sinatra, half-finished furniture, lined like ghosts of time. I didn't realize how much I needed that kind of peace until I stepped back into my parents' house the next week and smelled bleach and judgment. I used to think love meant patience, that if I kept showing up, kept bringing small pieces of myself, handmade frames, restored clocks, coffee tables, they'd eventually see me. Instead, they saw clutter. Last Thanksgiving was the first time I noticed the pattern outright. Savannah got a diamond bracelet. I got a gas card, and a joke about keeping the van running. I smiled for the photo, one arm around my mom, the other holding a gift receipt. I didn't know it then. I'd tell myself later. But that night was the rehearsal for every humiliation that followed. Because when you're used to being ignored, you stop defending yourself. You just file the pain away, like sanding over splinters until your palms go numb. And numbness, yeah, that's what I mistook for peace. By my mid-20s, I'd built a small rhythm for myself. Mornings started with the smell of sawdust and burnt coffee. Nights ended with the whine of a sander fading into silence. My garage-turned-workshop was cramped, but it was mine. Every scar on the workbench, every paint stain on the floor told a story no one else cared to read. That little shop kept me sane. The hum of tools was steadier than any family conversation. I'd line up old chairs and radios like patients waiting for surgery. Fixing things gave me something my family never did, proof that broken didn't mean worthless. Sometimes Savannah would stop by, all gloss and perfume, pretending to check in. You should post this stuff, she'd say. Snapping photos without asking. Could help my page, you know? give me that rustic vibe. I laughed, half flattered, half annoyed. I didn't realize she'd started uploading my work, my restored pieces under her name. When I confronted her later, she shrugged. Relax. It's just inspiration. I tried not to care, but it burned anyway. Watching her followers praise her eye for design, using my photos was like watching someone else wear your skin. I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't chasing clout. I was chasing craft. But still, every love this piece. Under her post felt like a paper cut across pride. Then came the Sunday dinners. They started as tradition, ended as performance. Every few months, Mom would stage a family reunion around a perfectly set table. She'd assign seats like a director casting roles. Dad at the head, Savannah glowing center frame, Brandon cracking jokes on cue, and me at the corner. The filler shot. One night, I brought a handmade centerpiece brass rings I'd polished from an estate sale, a linen runner I'd restored. Mom smiled that tight, pretty smile. Sweet, honey, but we've moved past rustic. My father chuckled, and I felt the air go thin. Those nights followed a script. Brandon bragged about bonuses. Savannah floated new promotions. Mom poured wine, and I chewed slowly, pretending not to hear the invisible applause. I'd throw in something about a client or a project, and silence would land like dust. Then someone would pivot always smoothly to a safer topic. It was their version of muting me. Still, I kept showing up. Hope is a stupidly stubborn thing. Every time I told myself, maybe this dinner would be different, maybe someone would ask about my work like it mattered. But all it ever took was one small insult to reset the balance. There was this one holiday Christmas 2 years ago. I'd restored a 1,940 seconds writing desk for a collector, and he'd sent me a thank you note saying it was museum-worthy. I told Mom. She smiled, almost proud, then said, "That's lovely. Maybe one day you'll get a real exhibit." Savannah giggled into her champagne. Brandon raised a brow. "Sure, as long as it pays the bills. Right?" I laughed along because I didn't know what else to do. That night, when everyone had gone to bed, I stepped outside. Snow covered the driveway, muffling everything but my own breath. I thought about that cabinet I built at 17, the one Mom sold without a word. I realized I'd been building versions of that same cabinet ever since, trying to fill the empty space it left. By the time I turned 29, I had stopped waiting for their approval. I told myself I'd made peace with being misunderstood. But peace built on silence is a lie, and lies rot slow. I didn't know it back then, but everything I'd learned from repairing broken wood, the patience, the precision, the quiet wasn't just preparing me for my craft. It was preparing me for the moment I'd finally stop fixing things that didn't deserve saving. And that moment was coming faster than I thought. March rolled in with that half-hearted chill that can't decide if it's still winter or not. My phone buzzed one Tuesday morning. Mom's group text, titled Family Update. It read, "Dinner this Sunday. Everyone's coming. Dress nice. Savannah has a surprise. No please. No question mark. Just orders disguised as warmth." I almost ignored it. Almost. But guilt still had a leash on me. I showed up at 6 sharp with a bottle of Cabernet and a handmade cheese board walnut wood, finished with mineral oil until it gleamed. The house hadn't changed. Same cream walls. Same framed photos of Savannah's graduation and Brandon's kids. None of me. I set the bottle on the counter, said hello, and immediately felt that familiar shift in air. The polite nods, the too bright smiles, the unsaid hierarchy slipping back into place. Dinner began fine. Small talk, laughter that felt rehearsed. Then Savannah cleared her throat like she was calling a meeting. "So," she said, grinning, "Miles and I have news." Miles, the walking LinkedIn profile in a tailored suit, reached for her hand. "We're engaged." Mom gasped like she'd just witnessed a miracle. Dad stood to shake his hand. Brandon whistled. I smiled, genuinely happy for a moment until Savannah's eyes flicked toward me. "Ethan, try not to forget the wedding this time, okay?" Everyone laughed. I felt the sting crawl up my neck. "Guess I'll need an official invite, then," I said lightly. Mom clinked her glass. "Of course, you'll come. Just behave like an adult, all right?" That word behave hit harder than it should have. They spent the next hour planning dates, color palettes, venues, everything. I nodded at the right times, but I wasn't really there. I was watching from outside my own life. 2 weeks later, Savannah sent another text. Engagement dinner at home this Sunday. Be on time. Formal. No emoji this time. That night was the breaking point. The table was full stakes. Candles. Laughter. The illusion of harmony. Parker from my sister's original story had nothing on Miles. This guy was smoother, confident, always on. At one point, he turned to me and asked, "So, Ethan, what do you do exactly? Savannah mentioned you build vintage stuff?" I opened my mouth, but Mom's voice cut through. "Don't get him started, dear. You'll be here all night hearing about wood polish and old furniture." Laughter rippled. Brandon smirked. "Unless you need a new coffee table from the 70s. Savannah leaned in, wine glass raised. "Maybe just say you're a designer this time, so it doesn't sound so tragic." The table roared again. Miles looked down awkwardly. I just smiled, slow and steady, until it didn't feel like smiling anymore. "That's fine," I said. "Designer sounds mysterious." They moved on stock market, wedding planning, nonsense. But I wasn't listening. I was watching them laugh, watching the way no one noticed how quiet I'd gone. After dinner, I walked out early, told them I had work in the morning. The air outside was cold, sharp enough to keep me awake. I sat in my truck, headlights off, listening to my own breathing. It wasn't the first time they'd laughed at me, but it was the first time I felt something shift inside, the click of a lock sliding open. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept hearing Mom's voice, "Don't get him started," and Savannah's laugh trailing after it. By morning, my workshop felt different. Colder, quieter. I didn't turn on the radio. I just stared at the tools on the wall and thought, they'll never get it. But someone else did. That week, Walter called. "Got some overflow work. If you're interested," he said. "Old clients of mine. Boutique hotel chain needs someone who still cares about the craft." I almost said no. My confidence had worn thin. But Walter had that way of speaking like your best self was standing just behind you, waiting to be invited back. "Take it," he said. "They'll appreciate you more than your own blood." That job changed everything. It led to a meeting with an interior designer from Chicago, then another with a magazine blogger. For once, people weren't laughing. They were listening. Then came the email from Modern Heirlooms. Dana Ruiz, producer. Upbeat tone. Lots of exclamation marks. She'd seen my portfolio through a mutual client. "Your work has soul," she wrote. "Would you consider being featured in our upcoming series about artisans redefining tradition?" I reread the message 5 times. Soul. No one in my family had ever used that word for me. I said yes before I could talk myself out of it. I didn't know it then, but that email was the first thread of something much bigger, something that would unravel everything they thought they knew about me. The contract with Modern Heirlooms came faster than I expected, clean, professional, no strings attached. They wanted me to provide pieces for an upcoming wedding episode. The producer, Dana, explained over the phone, "We're shooting on location at a private estate, vintage romantic theme. Think warm brass, carved wood, timeless details." When she said the venue name, I froze. It was the exact one Savannah had mentioned. Lakeview Estate. Her wedding venue. For a second, I thought it was a prank. I even checked the email twice to make sure it wasn't spam. But no, it was real. They'd found me through a hotel project, then through Elise Park, the wedding planner. "She loved your console tables," Dana said. "You're exactly what we're looking for." I almost laughed. The universe has a dark sense of humor. That night, I stood in the workshop, surrounded by half-finished projects, and realized I was about to build furniture for my sister's wedding without her knowing. I didn't tell anyone. Not Walter, not Riley, not even Elise at first. I just worked. The shop became my whole world. The rhythmic hum of the sander, the smell of varnish, the metallic click of measuring tape, it all blended into something steady, something clean. I started with the console tables, reclaimed oak, grain polished until it glowed like honey. Then the podiums, dark walnut, simple but bold, carved with subtle patterns that caught the light. The love seat came last. A 1,930 seconds French piece I'd found at an estate sale, its frame cracked, its velvet shredded. Everyone else saw garbage. I saw resurrection. Riley helped me reupholster it in deep green velvet. Hand-stitched seams, brass studs along the edges. When I was done, I just stared at it. It didn't look like a couch, it looked like a confession. Beautiful, quiet, a little haunted. A week before the wedding, Dana called again. Elise was floored, she said. Oh, and we'd love to feature you on camera. Just a short segment your process, your story. My heart thudded. At the venue? Yep. Morning before setup. Sure, I said, pretending my voice wasn't shaking. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image kept looping in my mind. Savannah walking down the aisle, surrounded by my work. My name printed on every tag and having no idea until it was too late. Revenge doesn't always start with hate. Sometimes, it starts with justice disguised as opportunity. The morning before the wedding, I arrived early. My van was packed tight, tables wrapped in blankets, the love seats secured with straps. The crew buzzed around, unloading cameras, cords, flowers. The estate was even more extravagant than I imagined: crystal chandeliers, manicured lawns, a lake shimmering like glass. A production assistant greeted me with a clipboard. "You're Ethan Cole? Great. We have you down for the 11 a.m. interview. Setup looks incredible, by the way." "Thanks," I said. I worked quietly for hours, setting up the tables by the entryway, adjusting the podiums under the floral arch, placing the love seat in the photo area. Every piece fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for this place. Around noon, Elise stopped by. "These are stunning," she said, brushing her hand along the wood. "You really understand balance." I smiled. Years of being told I was off balance helps. She didn't get the joke, but I did. The next morning, the wedding day came bright and warm. I wore a clean black shirt, pressed slacks, and the watch I'd bought for myself last year but never wore. The production crew had given me a lanyard with my name. Ethan Cole, artisan. Seeing it printed like that felt strange, solid. The interview went smoothly. Dana asked about my philosophy, my process, what restoration meant to me. I talked about patience, respect for history, how every scar tells a story worth saving. She smiled. "That's perfect. Authentic. We need more of that." By afternoon, guests began arriving. The band tuned up. The scent of roses and champagne drifted through the garden. I stayed near the back, pretending to adjust the lighting on my tables. Then I saw the mom, dad, Brandon, and Savannah stepping out of a limousine. Savannah looked every bit the princess she always wanted to be, in lace and diamonds, with Miles glowing beside her. They didn't see me. Not yet. They did see the furniture, though. I watched from a distance as Savannah paused, tilting her head. Then, Mom leaned in, whispering something. They both frowned slightly. I almost laughed. Guests started taking pictures on the love seat. Compliments floated through the air. "These pieces are gorgeous. So unique. Who did the design?" Near the reception entrance, a display card rested on the table, printed in elegant script. Featured artisan, Ethan Cole. Furniture design and restoration, as seen on Modern Heirlooms. I saw Mom freeze mid-step when she read it. She whispered to Dad. Brandon frowned. Savannah turned, scanning the crowd until her gaze found mine. I didn't move, just lifted my glass of water slightly, a silent toast. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. The music swelled. The ceremony began. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small in their world. They were standing in mine. And the best part? The cameras were rolling. What happened next? What really broke the balance wasn't planned. But sometimes, the universe adds its own punctuation to a story. The ceremony started like every perfect wedding should: gold lights spilling through the windows, violins humming soft beneath the chatter. Savannah stood beneath the arch, framed by flowers and the podium I built with my own hands. Miles beamed beside her, the cameras sweeping slow across the crowd. Everything looked flawless, almost too flawless. Then, during the first toast, the lights flickered. Once, twice. A hush rippled through the room. The chandeliers dimmed out completely, plunging the hall into that awkward half-dark where every face looks unsure. Someone gasped. A baby cried. The band stopped mid-note. And then, my podium, my workload. The tiny LED backup I'd built into the wood, purely practical. I told myself cast a warm amber light across the stage. The arch shimmered. The tables reflected soft gold. Gasps turned into applause. The MC chuckled nervously into the mic. Well, good thing the decor's smarter than the power grid. Laughter broke the tension. People clapped, and just like that, the panic melted. For a moment, the entire room was lit by my craftsmanship, my design, and my name on every tag, On that display card sat right there in the center of it all. Savannah's face was frozen in a smile that didn't move past her teeth. Miles looked impressed, the kind of impressed you can't fake. Power returned a minute later, but something had shifted. Guests kept whispering, asking where the furniture came from, complimenting the details. One woman leaned toward Savannah. "Your brother's incredible. How lucky to have family talent like that in your wedding." Savannah blinked, her jaw tightening. "Oh, yes. Very lucky." After dinner, the slideshow began photos from their engagement. Trips. Family memories. I wasn't in a single one. But then, halfway through, a slide flashed a rustic dining setup, sunlight hitting polished oak. My table. My work. It lingered a second too long before switching to the next image. A murmur spread. Someone whispered, "Isn't that Cole Atelier's?" Another guest answered, "Yeah. Saw it on Instagram, beautiful pieces." I glanced at Dana from across the room. She gave me a small, knowing smile. It wasn't coincidence. She'd slipped in that image from the Modern Heirlooms teaser to tie the aesthetic together. But to everyone else, it looked like Savannah was bragging with my photos. The irony burned sweet. Then came the final twist. Dana, filming B-roll, approached Miles with her camera rolling. "So, Miles," she said, cheerful, "I heard your company helped with some of the wedding's design concepts?" He grinned, ready for his close-up. "Yeah, I offered a few notes on layout and lighting. My fiancé's got an eye for detail." Dana tilted her head. "Interesting, you mean those sample boards you sent over last month? Some of those photos matched Ethan's portfolio." "Small world, huh?" Miles's smile faltered. Right? Yes, must have been reference images." Savannah shot him a warning glare. The tension hung heavy enough to taste. The cameras kept rolling. I stood near the back, pretending to sip champagne, feeling that slow, clean satisfaction of balance restoring itself. After the formal photos, Savannah made her move. She glided toward me, veil tucked over her arm. Smile tight. "Ethan, a word?" We stepped behind the reception tent, the muffled bass from the dance floor thumping through the grass. She turned, voice sharp and low. "What the hell is this? You hijacked my wedding." I laughed quietly. "Hijacked? I built half of it." She folded her arms. "You planned this. The credits, the lights, the show. This is pathetic." "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "What's pathetic is pretending your whole life isn't built on other people's work." She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her. "You told me to lie about my job so I wouldn't sound pathetic. Tonight, every guest here, every camera, every article that airs, they'll know exactly what I do. And exactly who built the stage you're standing on." Her face twisted. "You think this makes you better than me?" "No," I said softly. "It makes me seen." A pause stretched between us, filled with the sound of laughter and music from the tent. "By the way," I added, nodding toward the arch, "careful sitting on the love seat later. It's stronger than it looks, but not indestructible. Kind of like me." She didn't respond, just stood there, breathing hard, eyes wet with anger. I walked away, back toward the light, the sound, the people. No applause waited, no grand declaration, just quiet vindication. Inside, the cameras caught another shot of the podium, gleaming under steady lights. My name visible, etched into the corner. That night, they toasted love and family. But for me, it was a eulogy. Not for what I lost, only for what I finally let die. The next morning, the lake was still. The crew had already packed up, the guests long gone, and the estate looked like a movie set after the credits, beautiful, but empty. I stood alone by the delivery van, sunlight catching the green velvet love seat through the open doors. It had survived the night perfectly, not a single scratch. I ran my hand across the fabric, felt the tiny ridges of each stitch. People think revenge is about spectacle, about shouting, about someone begging for forgiveness. It's not. Real revenge is quiet. It's the moment when you stop chasing recognition and let your work speak for you louder than they ever let you. By the time the episode aired, I was back in my workshop. The phone rang nonstop, new commissions, interview requests, one from a boutique hotel in Maine, another from a film set in Toronto. The love seat went viral before I even realized it. Dana texted me a photo of the broadcast schedule. "Your segment's next week. People are going to love you." When the show finally aired, I didn't tell my family. I didn't need to. The comments came flooding in. Ethan Cole, true craftsman. Art with heart. That wedding design? Unreal. My name sat in the credits, bold, undeniable. A week later, my mother called. No apology, just her voice trying to sound casual. We saw the episode. Very impressive. Surprised you didn't mention your sister. Why would I? I said softly. Well, she said, that brittle tone creeping in. We're still family. Are we? Silence. Finally, she sighed. Your father wants to have dinner. Start fresh. I looked around my workshop, the hum of my tools, the smell of varnish, the sunlight catching the dust in midair. I already did, I said. Just not with you. When the call ended, I didn't feel anger. Just peace. The kind that hums under your ribs like a quiet engine. Because they thought they'd laughed me into silence. But all along, I was just sharpening it. If you've ever been the outsider in your own family, you know this feeling, the silence, the smile you fake so they don't see the hurt. But here's the truth. You don't owe anyone the smaller version of yourself just to make them comfortable. I stopped asking to be seen and started building something they couldn't ignore. That's how you win, not by screaming, but by standing tall in your own light. So tell me, where are you watching from? Hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you. This story isn't over.